The tomb of Christ. Millions of Christians revere this shrine as the final earthly resting place of Jesus.
Centuries of faith, mystery, and divine reverence surround the story of Jesus Christ. But one of the most intriguing moments in history came when his tomb was opened for the very first time. Imagine standing before the very place believed to hold the body of the most influential figure in human history. What secrets, truths, or revelations could possibly lie within?
You tread where Jesus trod. You see where Jesus died and was buried, and the tomb from which he rose. And the impression it makes upon one is unforgettable.
Was it a silent echo of the past, or a message meant for generations to come? Join us as we uncover this extraordinary discovery. The unexpected discovery. The original rock where Jesus Christ is traditionally believed to have been buried in Jerusalem has reportedly been exposed to the light of day for the first time in centuries. According to an exclusive report by National Geographic, a partner in the project at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the original rock surface has been covered with marble slabs since at least 1555, and possibly longer. Frank Hebert, the archaeologist in residence at the National Geographic Society, revealed that during a conservation project to shore up the shrine surrounding the tomb, a team from the National Technical University of Athens in Greece realized that they would need to access the substructure of the shrine to restore it. But while workers remove a marble slab covering the original stone, which happens to be the burial bed where Jesus Christ is said to have been laid to rest after being crucified, they saw a layer of loose fill material beneath, uncovering something unimaginable. Now, the question is, what exactly did they see? And what message is that passing across to us and generations to come? But before we dive deep into what was found, let's take a quick look at the historical background of the crucifixion and burial of Jesus. Buckle up, because this is just the beginning of what is about to be revealed. The crucifixion of Jesus is one of the most important events in the Christian religion. According to Christian beliefs, Jesus Christ was the Son of God, who was sent to earth in human form in order to provide salvation to humanity, which was sinful. It is generally believed by Christians that in order for Jesus to fulfill his purpose of saving humanity, he had to sacrifice his human life for the greater good. During his lifetime, Jesus gathered a following and became acclaimed as the King of the Jews. This was regarded as a punishable offense at the time, which led to Jesus being arrested. Ultimately, he was sentenced to die by crucifixion, which was a particular method of torture and execution. According to Christian doctrine, after Jesus died and was buried, he rose from the dead 3 days later and ascended to heaven. Christians believe that if they trust in Jesus, who died for their sins, they can also go to heaven and experience the same eternal life. The crucifixion of Jesus and the events leading up to it are described in the first 4 books of the New Testament of the Bible, otherwise known as the Gospels: Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. According to Matthew, Jesus predicted his own death, which was regarded to be part of a divine plan to provide salvation to the sinful species of humanity. Jesus explained to his disciples that he needed to go to Jerusalem, where he would suffer and die at the hands of the law, in order to rise again on the 3rd day. He also explained his upcoming death as a necessary sacrifice to help others. There was also an account of Jesus' crucifixion. The physical location where Christ was crucified is called Golgotha, which is otherwise known as Calvary or Skull. Many theologians have even pondered why it was called the place of the skull. Origen speculated Golgotha received its name because Adam's skull was buried beneath the cross. Jerome suggested it was because the skulls of executed prisoners littered the area. Most likely, the hill got its name either because it was the place of execution or because the site somewhat resembled a skull. It was here that Jesus was crucified. According to reports, crucifixion was a particularly horrible mode of punishment by which a person, or sometimes an already dead corpse of an executed victim, would be nailed to a cross. Roman politician Cicero called crucifixion the most cruel and disgusting penalty, and for good reason. Victims of this mode of execution were nailed with long spikes into wooden planks. Often, crucified people lingered on the cross for days, and death came ultimately from loss of blood or asphyxiation. After their deaths, bodies were usually left up to decompose. The account of Matthew finishes chapter 27 of his Gospel account by describing how Jesus was buried. Joseph, a member of the Sanhedrin, who was believed to not consent to the actions which were done against Jesus, asked for the body of Christ after his death. Jesus was reportedly placed in a tomb which was then blocked with a stone that could be rolled back and forth. But history and faith don't stop at the crucifixion and resurrection accounts. For centuries, one burning question has fascinated believers and scholars alike. Where exactly was Jesus laid to rest? Could the very place where his body was placed still exist today, hidden beneath layers of time, wars, and devotion? To answer that, we must journey to the heart of Jerusalem, where the traditional site of Jesus' tomb continues to stir awe and debate. Stick around, because what will be revealed next will put you at the edge of your seat. The location and discovery of Jesus' tomb. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre, also known as the Church of the Resurrection, is a 4th century church in the Christian quarter of the Old City of Jerusalem. The church is believed to be the seat of the Armenian Patriarchate of Jerusalem, Greek Orthodox Patriarchate of Jerusalem, and the Catholic Latin Patriarchate of Jerusalem. It is regarded as the holiest site in Christianity, and it has been an important pilgrimage site for Christians since the 4th century. According to traditions dating to the 4th century, the church contains both the site where Jesus was crucified at Calvary and the location of Jesus' empty tomb where he was buried and resurrected. Both locations are considered immensely holy sites by most Christians. The church and rotunda was built under Constantine the Great in the 4th century and destroyed by Al-Hakim in 1009. Al-Hakim's son allowed Emperor Constantine IX Monomachos to reconstruct the church, which was completed in 1048. After it was captured by the Crusaders in 1099, it continued to undergo modifications, which was believed to have resulted in a significant departure from the original structure. Several renovations and restorations were also said to have been made under the Ottomans. The tomb itself is enclosed by a 19th century shrine called the Aedicule. Within the church proper are the last 4 stations of the cross of the Via Dolorosa, representing the final episodes of the Passion of Jesus. The church has since been a major Christian pilgrimage destination since its creation in the 4th century as the traditional site of the resurrection of Christ, which brought about its original Greek name, Church of the Anastasis. The status quo, an understanding between religious communities dating to 1757, applies to the site. The control of the church itself is said to be shared among several Christian denominations and secular entities in complicated arrangements, essentially unchanged for over 160 years and some for much longer. The main denominations sharing property over parts of the church are believed to be the Roman Catholic, Greek Orthodox, Armenian Apostolic, Coptic, Syriac, and Ethiopian Orthodox churches. Directly adjacent to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is the Church of the Redeemer, marking a Lutheran presence at the site. Reports have it that visitors to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre in Jerusalem are often surprised to discover how close the tomb is to the site traditionally identified as Golgotha. Yet when the Gospels are read, it is discovered that this arrangement is exactly what we would expect. It was gathered from John's account that Christ was buried in a garden, which was in the place where he was crucified, and this burial place was ideal precisely because the tomb was nearby. It makes sense, then, that in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, the traditional sites of Christ's crucifixion and burial are located just a stone's throw away from one another. But how reliable are these traditions? It must be noted that there is historical evidence regarding the location of Jesus' tomb. Archaeological evidence suggests that the site where the Church of the Holy Sepulchre stands today was once a large limestone quarry situated just outside the walls of Jerusalem. From the 8th to the 1st centuries BC, it was used to serve the different building needs of the city. By the 1st century AD, however, it was reported that the quarry had ceased operations. At this point, the site was said to have been repurposed in a number of ways. First, it began to be used as a graveyard by the Jewish inhabitants of Jerusalem. Burials are believed to typically take place outside the city walls, and the former quarry proved to be a convenient location, both because of its proximity to the city and because of the abundance of raw materials on hand. Archaeologists have discovered multiple tombs dating back to the 1st century in the area surrounding the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. These tombs were carved into the limestone hillside, and they were used by wealthy Jews like Joseph of Arimathea. In addition, the area started to be cultivated for agricultural purposes. Recent archaeological excavations at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre show evidence of olive trees and grapevines having grown on the site some 2,000 years ago. This fits well with the description from John's Gospel about Jesus being buried in a garden. Finally, at least according to Christian tradition, the area started being used by the Romans for public executions. This makes historical sense, given the regional custom of carrying out crucifixions outside the city walls, and given that the Romans preferred to crucify their victims in prominent places, such as at a crossroads or on a hill. Since the old quarry was located close to the city, one of its various rocky knolls would have been an ideal spot for the Romans to carry out their grisly work. For centuries, pilgrims bowed in reverence at the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, believing it sheltered the holiest site in Christianity. Yet, despite its sacredness, the tomb itself remained sealed and untouched for generations, guarded by tradition and mystery. But now, and for the very first time in history, experts dared to open it. What they uncovered inside would leave the world in awe. What did they uncover? Hold on, because the most interesting part of this revelation is about to unfold. The opening of Jesus' tomb. In October 2016, for the first time in at least 500 years, archaeologists reportedly removed the marble covering from Jesus Christ's supposed burial bed. The unveiling was believed to be a part of a $4 million effort to restore the edicule, a structure within Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre that houses the gravesite. Researchers were believed to have replaced the slab, which was installed around 1555 to prevent pilgrims from taking souvenirs after just a few moments. But the 60-hour restoration work, which began on October 26, 2016, was said to have turned up more than just marble. Chief Scientific Supervisor Antonia Maropoulou of the National Technical Geographic revealed that it was a critical moment for rehabilitating the edicule. She added that the techniques that were used to document the unique monument will enable the world to study their findings as if they themselves were in the tomb of Christ. Reports have it that after some initial inspection, researchers feared that only fill material lay beneath the marble cladding of the burial bed. Later, they found that the original limestone slab was intact. Frederick Hebert, National Geographic's archaeologist in residence, told National Geographic that he was absolutely amazed, and his knees shook a little bit because of what they saw. He revealed that they can't say 100%, but that it appears to be visible proof that the location of the tomb has not shifted through time, something that scientists and historians have wondered for decades. The restoration was also said to have turned up pieces of the tomb's original limestone wall, as well as a cross-engraved marble slab that may date back to the Crusades. It was reported that researchers hoped that analysis of graffiti carvings could help date previous excavations. Present at the restoration was a Franciscan archaeologist and an expert on the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, Father Eugenio Aliata, who was invited to the opening of the tomb of Jesus.
For the first time in centuries, researchers have uncovered what's believed to be Jesus' tomb inside the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Chris Mitchell takes us to the heart of Jerusalem's Old City, where a major renovation is underway.
Although the restoration was not strictly an archaeological project, this expert on the Church of the Holy Sepulchre is believed could draw some conclusions from what he saw. He was present on the evening of October 26, 2016, when the marble slab over what is believed to be the burial place of Jesus was removed. It was only the second time since 1555 and the first time since 1809 that this most sacred of spaces for Christians was visible. As on the two previous occasions, the exposure of the burial place was believed to be part of the restoration work being done on the edicule, the shrine which surrounds the original limestone of the tomb. The project, which began in May 2016, was restricted to restoration, stabilization, and preservation of the present-day edicule, but did not involve an archaeological study on the tomb itself. The area directly over the spot revered as the place of Jesus' burial is on the right-hand side of the inner chamber of the edicule. The actual burial place is said to have been covered since 1809 by a marble slab, venerated by pilgrims over the centuries. It was also established that Eucharist was regularly celebrated on this slab. Cleared of all of its ornamentation, the wall of sculpted marble is believed to appear just as it was in 1809. Behind the image of the resurrected Christ reveals a portion of the north wall of what is believed to be the inner chamber of the original tomb. For proper study, archaeologists are said to be able to remove the marble down in order to inspect this side of the original stone. Workers carefully lifted off the slab and removed the backfill beneath it, revealing a second marble slab, known to eyewitnesses in past centuries. When he entered the area, Father Aliata could see and describe it. Broken in two across its length, a cross carved into it, and of a different marble. This slab is said to probably go back to the time of the Crusades. As to the cross, even though it is not all there, it looks like a cross from Lorraine. However, opening the tomb was only the beginning. What lay inside demanded answers, not just from the faithful, but from science itself. Archaeologists, historians, and conservation experts quickly moved in, determined to analyze every stone, slab, and fragment. Could modern technology finally unlock secrets that had been sealed for nearly 2,000 years? The reactions to their findings would be as fascinating as the discovery itself. Brace up, because there seems to be more than what was revealed. Scientific examinations and reactions. In November 2017, an expert involved in the study revealed that scientific testing at what is believed to be Jesus' tomb dates material there to the 4th century, supporting traditional beliefs surrounding the site. The study offers no further evidence whether or not Jesus was actually buried at the site in Jerusalem, but was consistent with the historical belief that the Romans built a monument there some 3 years after his death. It is the first time such testing has been carried out at the site, located at what is now the Church of the Holy Sepulchre and encased in an elaborate shrine or edicule. The tests on mortar at the site were done in connection with recent restoration work, which saw the cave where Jesus is believed to have been buried opened for the first time in centuries. Antonia Maropoulou, chief scientific coordinator of the restoration works, said the testing was consistent with historical beliefs that the Romans built a monument at the presumed tomb during the era of Constantine the Great, circa 326. Many historians have long believed that the original cave, identified a few centuries after Jesus' death as his tomb, was obliterated ages ago, but an archaeologist accompanying the restoration team said ground-penetrating radar tests determined that the cave walls were in fact standing at a height of 6 feet and connected to bedrock behind the marbled panels of the chamber at the center of Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Frederick Hebert, who claimed what they found was astonishing, revealed that underneath the marble was a layer of debris, which once removed revealed something unexpected, another marble slab. Mr. Hebert said he thought the second slab, which is gray and features a small etching of a cross, dates back to the 12th century. He added that it is cracked down the middle, and underneath it is a whitish layer. Mr. Hebert revealed that the work is part of a historic renovation project to reinforce and preserve the edicule, the chamber housing the cave where Jesus is said to have been entombed and resurrected. He added that it is the centerpiece of one of Christianity's oldest churches and one of its most important shrines. Reports also have it that the restoration team decided to tightly seal the core of the tomb before injecting parts of the shrine with mortar for reinforcement, so the material doesn't seep inside what is considered to be the holy rock. It was also reported that National Geographic is partnering with Greek restoration experts to document the work. David Grenier, secretary of a group that oversees Roman Catholic Church properties in the Holy Land, who stood with a few other Franciscan friars, watching the work crew in awe, revealed that what happened there 2,000 years ago completely changed the history of the world. He expressed overwhelming joy in being able to dig to the rock where the body of Jesus was laid. It was reported that Martin Biddle, an expert on the history of the tomb, explained that scholars would now have to carefully examine the data collected when the burial bed and cave walls were exposed in order to establish any real connection to Jesus. He was quoted as saying that the surfaces of the rock must be studied with the greatest care, even minutely, for traces of graffiti. Reports have it that Biddle also questioned why the 4th century historian Bishop Eusebius identified this particular tomb as that of Christ, since Eusebius did not give a reason. Biddle was said to have added that he personally did not think Eusebius was wrong, describing him as a very good scholar, and suggesting that evidence probably existed if only it was carefully looked for. It is believed that historians had long assumed the original remnants of the tomb were destroyed over the centuries. Records suggest that the original church built over the traditional site of Jesus' burial was demolished in 1009, nearly a century before the First Crusade in year 1099. Reports indicate that the Fatimid Caliph of Egypt ordered the governor of Ramleh to destroy the church. A Christian chronicler from Antioch was said to have written that the Arabs attempted to remove the Holy Sepulchre and erase all traces of it, breaking and demolishing the greater part of the structure. Although experts admit that it is impossible to say with certainty that the rock-hewn tomb was indeed the burial site of Jesus, it was noted that the discovery of at least 6 other rock-cut tombs around the church points to the area being used as a Jewish cemetery during the late Second Temple period, the same period when Jesus of Nazareth lived. Reports also mentioned that Dan Bahat, a former city archaeologist of Jerusalem, told National Geographic that while absolute certainty about the site of Jesus' burial was not possible, no other site carried a claim as weighty as that of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. He was said to have argued that there was really no reason to reject the authenticity of the site. It was also reported that the restoration team installed a window to display part of the area exposed by researchers, allowing visitors to look into the limestone cave. Science revealed the layers of stone and history, but beyond the dust and data lies something even more powerful: the impact on human hearts and cultures. For millions, this discovery wasn't just about archaeology, it was about faith, identity, and the very foundation of belief. How did Christians, skeptics, and the world at large react when the tomb of Jesus was unsealed? The answers may surprise you, and they may change how you see history itself. Stay with us, because what comes next is truly extraordinary. Religious and cultural impact. It was reported that the 3 Christian communities who have uneasily shared their holiest site for centuries had embarked on a large-scale project to restore the ancient stone floor of the Jerusalem Basilica. The project was said to include an excavation that might shed light on the rich history of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre.
We will follow the footsteps of Jesus until the coming of that day. We will keep you in our prayer. We will hold your petitions and intentions in the altars of the Holy Land churches.
Located in the Old City, on the site where Christians believe Jesus was crucified, died, and rose again. The central event of the faith celebrated every Easter. Reports have it that the initiative marked a further improvement of relations among the Catholic, Greek Orthodox, and Armenian Apostolic churches. In the past, these groups were known to have clashed over the site, which they continue to share under a fragile arrangement dating back to the mid-19th century. It was further noted that 3 other denominations also enjoy clearly defined access to the church. Reverend Francesco Patton, the head of the Catholic Franciscan order devoted to preserving Christian sites in the Holy Land, was quoted as saying that cooperation among the 3 communities was the most important aspect of the project. He reportedly stressed that this cooperation showed the entire world that Christians of different churches and communities could build a fraternal relationship. It is believed that the three communities had already worked together in 2016 to restore the Holy Edicule, the site where Jesus is said to have been buried in a cave tomb. That was the first major renovation since the cleanup after a fire in 1808. Reports suggest that the renovation of the Edicule highlighted the need for further repairs to the basilica's floor, which was said to contain stones from the Crusader era, more recent additions from the 19th century, and rough patches of concrete and mortar from earlier repairs. It was reported that the 1,200 square meter floor would be repaired in phases so that liturgical services and pilgrim visits could continue. Sources also indicated that the sewage and electricity lines beneath the church, located in Jerusalem's crowded Old City, would be repaired. Heading the project was said to be Osama Hamdan, a Palestinian Muslim architect from Jerusalem who has worked on the conservation of Jewish, Christian, and Muslim sites across the Holy Land. Reports noted that he described the work as a great honor and part of his own cultural heritage. He was quoted as saying that the church represented a big part of the region's history, emphasizing that the people of the land were the product of successive layers of culture from pagans to Jews, then Christians, and later Muslims. At the ceremony marking the start of the project, it was reported that the Greek Patriarch of Jerusalem, Theophilos III, acknowledged the difficult time for humanity, mentioning the war in Ukraine and instability in other parts of the world. He was said to have remarked that caring for and restoring the holy place meant participating in the message of hope that emanates from the tomb, a hope not only for Christians, but for people of goodwill worldwide. Reports further indicated that after a preliminary 2-year study conducted during the coronavirus pandemic when the church was mostly empty, the actual work began this month. It was noted that the $11 million renovation project would be funded through donations and was expected to be completed by May 2024, depending on archaeological discoveries. The archaeological work was said to be carried out by experts from Sapienza University of Rome in cooperation with the Franciscan Faculty of Biblical Sciences and Archaeology in Jerusalem. Reverend Patton was also quoted as saying that excavations often brought surprises. It was reported that since 1852, the site has been governed by a strict power-sharing arrangement known as the status quo. Under this system, a Muslim family has reportedly been entrusted with the church's keys for at least 800 years. Reports note that while the different denominations have managed smaller renovations in their respective chapels, collective action for maintaining shared areas was often difficult. A turning point came in 2015, when Israeli authorities briefly closed the Edicule after declaring it unsafe. Observers have suggested that interdenominational relations have steadily improved since then, even though the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and other regional disputes remain unresolved. Reports also indicate that the restoration work itself has helped the churches repair their strained relations. Reverend Patton was quoted as saying that dialogue is made easier when communities work together, adding that joint efforts allow people to know one another and begin a process of trust. What do you think about what was discovered at the opening of Jesus' tomb? Do share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click on the following video showing. Thank you.